welcome in everyone to our deep dive today into, well, I guess you could say the state of the Premier League. You know, it's always changing, but especially we wanted to get into Tottenham and Manchester United. And we have this great article here from The Standard that's going to help us break it all down. And really the big takeaway that I got from reading this article is that maybe, just maybe, the idea of a big six is dead. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Is that possible?
Well, you know, it's fascinating to think about, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you've got these two clubs that are usually considered, well, they're always in the mix up at the top. Manchester United, Tottenham. And the season, both of them are really struggling. I mean, Tottenham just crashed out of 2 cup competitions in just a few days. And over at Manchester United, the coach actually even said that this could be the worst team in the club's history.
Wow, that's got to be tough to hear if you're a fan. But you're right, though. I mean, these teams, they're usually right up there in the top 8 every year. So what's different now? Why are they in this position all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I think the article does a good job of pointing out a few factors. One of the biggest ones is just money. You know, there's so much more money coming in now from these broadcasting deals. And also they've got these stricter financial rules now, and it's really leveled the playing field. I mean, you look at a club like Brighton. They're not a big club traditionally, but they've been able to attract really top talent, and they're actually doing really well. You know, they're right up there in the table. And a big part of that is they've been really strategic. They've used data analytics to identify players that other teams might overlook. And they've got this very distinctive attacking style of play that I think has taken a lot of teams by surprise.
Yeah, they've been fun to watch, for sure. So I guess what you're saying is it's not just about having the money anymore. Just because you're a big name like Tottenham or Manchester United doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be successful.
Right, exactly. You have to be smart about it now. And that's one of the big issues with Tottenham. The chairman, Daniel Levy, a lot of people say he's too cautious, maybe even risk-averse. He doesn't want to spend big money on players, and he doesn't want to take risks on up-and-coming managers.
Yeah, the article talked about how he told the fans, we've got our Tottenham back. But is that really a good thing if it means they're going back to being kind of average?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it really shows how tough it is for these big clubs to adapt to this new landscape. Tottenham have always relied so much on Harry Kane, but that's not really a long-term strategy. You can't build a whole team around one player. You've got to have a more cohesive approach.
Okay, so Tottenham may be relying a bit too much on one star player. What about Manchester United? They've got a new owner now, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that mean that things are going to turn around for them?
Yeah, you would think so, right? But even with the Glazers gone now, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe taking over, the club just seems to be, I don't know, adrift a little bit. It's like they don't have a clear vision for what they want to be.
So it's not enough to just spend money. You actually have to have a plan.
Yeah, you've got to have a strategy. They've spent tons of money on big-name players. But it's almost like they haven't thought about how those players are going to fit together.
Right, they're just kind of collecting stars.
Exactly.
It's like they're playing fantasy football.
Yeah.
Instead of actually managing a real team.
It does kind of feel that way sometimes, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. It's kind of like what the article was saying about data analytics and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just have scouts out there watching these players anymore, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, clubs are relying on data now more than ever. I mean, they're using it for everything, to analyze players, to scout potential signings, even to try and predict what their opponents are going to do. You know, you hear a lot about this XG thing now, expected goals. That's a really good example of how data is changing the game.
So it's not just about how many goals someone actually scores.
Right. It's about the quality of the chances they're getting. So, like, if a player is getting a lot of shots from really difficult angles, their XG might not be that high, even if they manage to score a couple of goals.
So you're saying a team could have a really high scoring total, but if a lot of those goals were just kind of lucky or fluky, then their XG might actually be pretty low.
Exactly. And that's not really sustainable over the long term. So, you know, XG can help teams identify players who are consistently getting into good positions to score.
Makes sense. But, I mean, does this mean that gut instinct is dead? Like, what about the old school scouts? The guys who've been doing this for years and years. Do they not have a place in the game anymore?
No, they absolutely still have a role to play. Data is a tool. It's not a replacement for human judgment.
Right.
The best scouts out there, they're the ones who can combine their experience with data insights to get a really complete picture of a player.
Okay, so you need both. You need the data and you need that human element.
Exactly.
And it's not just about scouting either.
Oh, no. I mean, they're using data for everything now. to analyze tactics, to design training programs. It's really revolutionizing the game.
It's wild to think how much technology is changing things.
I know, it really is.
You know, one thing that the article talked about that I thought was interesting was the importance of club culture.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have a good culture,
If you don't have that right environment.
it's not going to mean anything. You know, you look at a team like Liverpool. They've been so successful under Jurgen Klopp, and a big part of that is he's built this incredible culture there. Everyone's on the same page. They all work hard for each other.
They all believe in what they're doing.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
And that kind of team spirit,
It can be so powerful.
you know, when everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the players either. It's about everyone at the club, the coaches, the staff, the fans even.
Yeah, when you have that sense of shared purpose.
It's amazing what you can achieve.
Reminds me of Leicester winning the league a few years back.
That was incredible, wasn't it?
Total underdog story.
It really was.
I mean, they didn't have the best players in the league,
Not even close.
but they had that spirit, that belief.
They were a true team.
Yeah. And that's something you can't buy.
No, you can't.
So we've gotten about data.
Yeah.
We've talked about strategy. We've talked about club culture. Is there anything else that's really crucial for success in this new Premier League?
Well, I think adaptability is huge.
Yeah.
You know, things are changing so fast in this league. You have to be able to adjust on the fly.
You can't just stick with what worked 5 years ago.
Exactly. You have to be willing to try new things, to experiment, to be innovative.
So you're saying the teams that can adapt the fastest, those are the teams that are going to be successful.
I think so.
But what about this whole Big Six thing? I mean, is it really dead? Are these big clubs really just going to fade away?
I don't think it's that simple. I mean,
Yeah.
the smaller clubs are definitely closing the gap. But the big six clubs, they still have a lot of advantages.
I mean, they have the money,
They have the fan bases. They have the history.
so they're not going anywhere.
No, they're not going anywhere. But they can't afford to get complacent.
Right, they have to keep evolving.
They have to show the same hunger and ambition as the teams that are chasing them.
Man, it's a really exciting time to be a Premier League fan.
It is. It really is.
It's so unpredictable.
You never know what's going to happen.
That's why we love it.
That's right.
All right, so let's bring this back to you, the listener. So we've talked about a lot of stuff today about what it takes to be successful in the Premier League these days.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, if you were in charge of a club right now, knowing everything that we've talked about, what would be your top priority? Like, what's the one thing you would focus on to try to build a winning team?
That's a really good question. I think if I were in that position, my top priority would be to create a culture of continuous learning.
Okay, continuous learning.
Yeah, like throughout the whole club.
What do you mean by that?
In this league, things are changing all the time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not enough to just react to those changes. You have to be able to anticipate them
And how do you do that?
by making sure that everyone at the club, from the players to the coaches to the front office staff, are constantly learning, constantly trying to improve, constantly challenging themselves.
So it's almost like building a learning organization, but within a football club.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable asking questions, sharing their ideas, and even taking risks.
And if you can do that, if you can create that kind of culture,
I think you're setting yourself up for success in the long run.
yeah, because you're always evolving, you're always adapting.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's not just about winning trophies. It's about building a sustainable organization that can compete at a high level for years to come.
That's a great point.
Okay.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure.
And all of you listening out there, we hope you enjoyed this conversation and that you learned a thing or two about the Premier League. Until next time, keep on diving deep